Good afternoon. Welcome to Match Day. I'm Vince. We have Ian. And with us, we have Andrew Simpson from Florida Youth Soccer, who is a programs manager, I believe, right, for coaching education and Olympic development program for Florida Youth Soccer. So the Scott Flood of Florida Youth Soccer, and that's quite a compliment. And then also we have Mark Godwin, who is with Florida Youth Soccer as well. And we're going to be talking a little bit about today. But first off, let's make sure we have you two audio-wise. So, Andrew, just say hello. Just wave and say hello.
Hello. Hello.
Good. And then, Mark, can we hear you?
Hi, everyone.
Perfect. Perfect. Yes. How about you, boss? Can we hear you?
Yeah, and we've already got Julie from HSSC in Florida is on the call.
Awesome. Well, Andrew, Mark, thank you so much for taking time. I know you're really, really busy. And from the looks of it, Mark, in the background, it looks like you've got some stormy weather coming in. But it always rains, right, in Florida for 10 minutes?
In the afternoons, it's that time of year.
Very good. Thank you. So we thought today for the webinar, we'd talk about a little bit of return to play. There's been a lot of conversation about, protocols and things that were, and a lot of the stuff that I've seen has been from the Aspen Institute, right? And then also the CDC. And a lot of it, from what I'm seeing, it's geared for all kids, but it seems like the focus has been on the travel or select kid. But what about the recreation player, right? And the recreation coach, and how should they handle that? So I thought we'd tackle that. Maybe with Andrew, we'll talk about, we'll start with you, and we'll talk about what your governor just announced, right? And then how that impacts you. So we'll go ahead. I'm going to turn my camera off.
Sure thing.
Thanks.
So, as Vince there alluded to, as of Friday, our governor here in Florida gave us the go-ahead that all youth activity needs to go back and summer camps need to go back. So as far as we at FYSA are concerned, we had an emergency meeting our board did to say that our clubs can go return to play during these next 2 weeks starting yesterday. The clubs, so long as they have the city and county approval for their facilities or whatnot, over these next 2 weeks, they can train or host tryouts and anything but games. And they're recommended to keep those groups to smaller than 10 during that period. And then once we get beyond this 2 week period, they'll be able to go back into a league or a games tournaments kind of setting. So it was something kind of quick and somewhat unexpected that came out Friday. But so as far as we're concerned, we're just trying to deal with that and see where we can help clubs and get players back on the field. I know plenty of clubs that are eager and have been eager for quite some time. And so now if they have access to the facilities, they've got the green light.
Yeah, thank you. I was going to ask you, how many counties does that impact for you? Is it are some counties stricter than others in Florida? I don't know the landscape down there. Like here in Indiana, Marion County, which Indianapolis resides in, it's like a week or two behind, the phases. But I don't know how about you?
So for us, obviously the landscape is vastly different in that some of the feedback we've been getting up in the Panhandle, the Pensacola area, that a lot of those facilities and parks are open already. Whereas like Broward and Dade County and Miami, that area have been a lot slower to return. And a lot of that just in general, the number of cases in South Florida is so much greater. So though we expect that those facilities, in South Florida are going to be a lot slower to get parks open.
Yeah, no, good. Mr. Barker, any questions? I thought I'd ask Mark one to kind of get Mark going. But,
Yeah, so Florida Youth Soccer, you have a COVID resource page of some sort, a kind of a how to navigate?
We do. We push it out to all of our clubs, and we have it on our website as well, just as far as what our guidelines are for these next 2 weeks and then beyond. And it has kind of a bit there for coaches, players, parents, and clubs.
And then that resource page, I assume much like the one we have at United Soccer Coaches, and seems everybody's is, that's been an evolving document as new things have come and gone.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's probably changed 16 times in the last week, just as you get a bit and a piece from somebody else.
Yeah.
So just so you know, guys, Sarah from a club in Tampa, Sporting Tampa Bay is on here. And Julie had asked, or has said, we are in Martin County and they want a club COVID-19 action plan before we can start back. Is that a state requirement, a county requirement? Do you know what that would be?
So from what we've been told, a lot of the counties are asking for what sort of new things that they're going to put in place, what protocols and guidelines that they have, whether it's from the club or the governing body. But that's been pretty much by county or city by city. It's been a little bit different.
Yeah, we were talking before off air. I know we live in a very litigious society, and I'm not giving legal advice by any means, but something along the lines of a Good Samaritan law kind of almost seems like it would apply in as much as if you could, which I think they're asking for in Martin County. Tell us what your intentions are, show us your protocol. Now, it's a completely different thing saying it and doing it, but I think the process of at least planning gets you to first base for sure.
Yep, good. So Mark, let's jump to you. Ian, by the way, I can't control the things. I don't have administrator rights. But Mark, let's jump to you. So Andrew's the program minister guy, right? And he's the one that tells you where to go and what course you're going to do and all that. So he's king.
So be careful.
King Andrew. But let's talk about let's pretend a little bit here. So you have let's say you have a recreation course, and it's virtual, and all of a sudden this announcement comes out, and these recreation coaches like, oh great, good, I can get my 5-year-olds out on the field. So what advice can you give them to make sure that they're adhering to protocols and all that? Because we know that 5-year-olds don't spread out. Yeah. Although maybe they are now. Maybe they will now.
Oh, that's a tough one.
Yeah, I know. Threw a spitball at you.
I think before we even get to that stage, that it's important for any recreational coach to really pay attention to what the local government's putting out there, making sure any protocols that they've released we abide by before we go out to the parks. And once we're there, obviously controlling these young players is a very difficult thing. So as best you can is probably, and I know cones aren't the greatest thing for a 5-year-old to abide by, but if we can find some way to identify areas that they must stay in, that'll be great. And let's be honest, you may have to end up having like an aircraft field full of cones out there and hope the aircraft don't land.
Right.
But the bottom line is we have to be creative in what we do to make sure we accommodate some form of social distancing. I know even with my own family members, I've got a 6-year-old or a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old, and trying to keep them apart it's tough work even as a parent.
Yeah, no, I was kind of joking a little bit about the physical distancing thing, but I would think that now, because now 5-year-olds are hearing, hey, you got to stay away, right? And who knows, maybe this myth that 5-year-olds can't spread out will go away, but I don't know. No, I doubt it. I seriously doubt it. I mean, you know that. But you brought up a really good point. So it's almost like they have to create like little safe zones, right? With little, when you call them safe zones or whatever you call them, right? To appeal to their imaginations. So,
and we've got to get creative in getting for those players to identify those safe zones, because again, we can show that to them. They're not going to understand exactly what it is. So you have to get creative in the ways in which you show these things to them. And it could be a little game as such, like, that's your island and you've got the pirates coming and things like that. That's one way of doing it. And it's certainly stuff that we know from the old national youth course and so forth that we can apply to these situations.
Yeah. Good. And so Ian put a little thing in the chat box. He thinks that maybe we can do it for 10 minutes and then it's gone, right? For the itty bitties. But we know that recreation isn't just 5 to 8-year-olds, right? It's goes all the way up to high school kids. So, so basically, what your governor is saying, as long as the county and the city, local ordinance, or state, they have no restrictions, they can go ahead and play games.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
That's what I've heard. So, Andrew, if you want to, because you've been working on that project.
Yeah, as far as FYSA is concerned, it would have to be 2 weeks still. It would be 2 weeks from yesterday would have been the jump off point. So before there would be any sanctioned games from us. So for these, what we're encouraging is that people train in their home environments, their local environments over the course of these next couple of weeks before. And I don't know how many games will be played once we're into June, July, obviously, but we're not sanctioning anything during these next 2 weeks.
Right.
But obviously, beyond that, it's open.
Yeah. Now, I'm assuming that you all did your state cup a while back, right? You don't do it in the heat of the summer, do you, or do you?
It was canceled altogether because normally it's
altogether
March, April, May.
Okay.
So yeah, it had to be canceled.
Okay. So, Mr. Barker, you popped up.
Yeah, well, I just thought I'd share the love on the screen. Nobody needs any one of our heads that big, but be it Mark or me or Andrew or you. So I was talking to a colleague, and she asked me what she thought about her kids going back into the training environment. And as I thought about it, she's got very good kids, mature kids, and the club is solid. So I said to her, I think in your environment with your children, you're probably in a good situation. The challenge becomes, of course, as soon as you interact with another group that you don't have a direct management responsibility over. So as we go back to competition, now you're not only vigilant about your own behaviors and the way you've structured it within your program, you're looking at how the team that's coming to visit you acts or the team that you're traveling. So I think that adds a whole nother level of complexity, because I think managing your own environment is a challenge and getting it right. And that's what we're discussing now. And then all of a sudden, in a couple of weeks, potentially, you're allowed to compete with other people. So more than one layer to all of this, I think.
Yeah. Ian McCallum, by the way, from Washington, who's also a club director. Yeah, he just said it's just not possible to run camps with 5-year-olds and social distancing. So yes, and you said camps can go back, right? So college coaches can have camps. Is that correct?
Correct. Obviously, how the colleges are all handling that may be very different. But again, as far as the governor is concerned, they want camps for all sports or different types, whatever.
If we were gonna give a youth license 101, they say the 5 and 6-year-olds, one of their characteristics is they can be quite selfish, right? Quite egocentric and obsessed with their own gear. So maybe if parents could be involved in participating, and the parents spread out with the water bottles and the juice boxes, when the coach breaks the kids, now they maybe disperse to a dispersed parent group. That could be something. But you definitely want parents attending trainings now more than ever, I think, because whereas before I might be able to manage 8-9 little guys with an assistant for bathroom breaks, managing 8 or 9 of them, it could be really challenging for 1 or even 2 coaches together. So hopefully the parents will get involved too.
Yeah. Julie said we are looking at starting micros later, maybe September, November. And she just said that we're in a better way for all the new safety guidelines, is they'll need more volunteers to help out, right? So, and I think that's going to be a challenge too, right? I mean, it's always a challenge to get volunteers, period, right, for those recreation programs. But now it's even going to be more challenging. So are you just going to continually, like Mark, and are you going to update your COVID page on your website and send out communications on how they can, work with these kids safely?
Yeah, we have to. I mean, we got to stay up to date with everything that's going on out there. The interesting thing is clubs right now are already in that process, as you mentioned, on the competitive side, looking at their tryout situation and so forth. Yeah. So they got to prepare now. On the flip side of the coin, on the recreational side, we at least should have a little bit of preparation time. As you mentioned, I think, Ian, you mentioned that we probably won't get underway with recreational soccer now until around about September time. Yeah. And at least that gives us enough time to prepare, plan, and share information with those clubs that we do have several that in Florida that are recreational only. But right now, we've got to be prepared to give as much information to the competitive side as we can.
Yeah. So Amin, who is a loyal viewer, thank you, Amin. He's one of our 3 loyal viewers that we have, along with Ian McCallum. No, Amin asked, do you think that there will be a liability problem for clubs in case one or more players get the virus, right? And that's the big question. It's that liability factor that no one wants. So
do you want someone to answer that, Ian?
Yeah, I think he's just asking, do you think that's just going to be a liability problem?
Well, I'll take a shot at it, and then Vince, the question I had for the guys, maybe you can come back with that. So, I mean, what we're finding out, and this is factual, is that it is very, very difficult to find anybody that previously had some form of pandemic insurance and/or can get it now. Yeah. There are some bizarre examples around the country that certain organizations had pandemic insurance and paid a massive premium for it for years and never thought it would be in place, and now they have it. There's a couple of examples in the sort of convention visitor bureau type world. But I don't think any club can really go and get insurance and that type of cover. So that being the case, what we were talking to Andrew and Mark about before was set up all of your protocols, have them written down, have them clearly stated so everybody knows what they're getting into. And then, of course, do your very, very best to observe them.
Yeah.
But if you have a club or an organization that has legal counsel, we would recommend you probably go to it because it's going to be different state to state or different within counties within states. And the simple fact is you probably don't have any kind of airclad protection liability-wise if somebody wants to make a case. So, I mean, I think we would all advise go pay a lawyer before you worry about collecting the dues of the kids.
Can I tag on?
Yeah.
Tag on to that for a second? Obviously, yeah, many people, their insurance would renew going into the next season. So there's just no way that you're going to get that pandemic insurance moving forward, not without paying an ungodly fee. And then secondary to that was we had a conversation, and I do not remember who it was with, but obviously the challenge of proving that a player got COVID strictly from their soccer activity is going to be really hard. So yes, it is something that clubs definitely need to put things in place, but understand that if that's the player's only interaction with other human beings, then it could be narrowed down to that, but it can be really hard to actually pin back to one interaction, to say those kind of things. Yeah,
no, it's good. So Ian, I think you asked the question about sanctioning tournaments. You had that?
Yeah, well, given that Florida is such a hot destination spot for tournaments, and given that tournaments are a financial necessity for so many clubs, where is the state with sanctioning out-of-state travel for tournaments?
So right now, in this 2 weeks, we're not, but beyond this 2 weeks, we would. Obviously, that is still an ongoing discussion. And one of the there was a baseball tournament that was over on the East Coast this past weekend, and that was an extremely hot topic, about how they were handling that, teams traveling from in and out of different states and how they set up games. So that, yes, is the answer. There's still a discussion being had on that, though.
Yeah. So, Mark, is ODP kind of shut down? Do you do anything with ODP?
I'm not heavily involved in my role with ODP in the state, but I know there's a lot of ongoing discussion about ODP for the future. Currently, like everything else, it's not going away. It's just postponed, and we're already prepping for the next season, which starts very soon. So we're gearing up towards that. ODP's gone through some huge changes in the last 12 months. And I don't think we were quite, nationally prepared for these changes. But at least having this break has better prepared us. we know what to expect now and going in. I think we're going to do a phenomenal job here in Florida. We have some amazing players that participate in ODP. And I think it's going to go from strength to strength.
Yeah. No, it's good. I forgot, and I apologize that you all probably don't start your recreation until September, October, because it's cooler, obviously, and it's pretty much the same here in Indianapolis where I live, where they're talking the weekend of July 4th, or the July 4th date is our date, right? That we're going to go back to kind of some normalcy, but we'll see. Well, we've kept you guys longer than 15 minutes, but just wanted to, anything else though, Mr. Barker?
Well, no, I hope people share this and look at it, because we talk about individual coaches and teams, we talk about clubs, but when you're a state association, as much as USYS is 55 states, each state is its own world. And so hearing some of the unique challenges to Florida, and you as the parent organization trying to help those member clubs. I think in Minnesota, when I was there, we had about 150 member clubs. And then, of course, your clubs will be working with AYSO affiliates on the same space, or US club or whatever. So there's a lot of good players in Florida and a lot of good clubs and people. And it's really interesting to hear how you guys take a leadership role. So thank you for your time.
We do have thank you. We have one last question if you guys have time, from Julie. She says, when games are allowed to play, how will we know the other club's COVID-19 plan, to keep all people safe, I think is what she's safe at their fields. So are you going to require that, or how's that going to look on your end, Andrew or Mark? Either one.
Mark, do you want this one? I mean, I can.
You can have that one, Andrew.
No, I've already thrown Mark a spitball.
So obviously, we've put out protocols and guidelines, but we're not the police for those things. We trust that clubs are going to act in the best interest of everyone involved. And also on a Saturday, if that means it's their players and another club's players, then we expect that they act in the best interest. We would love to be able to support more than that, but we understand we're not going to be able to police each and every spot. So we hope that we've given people enough resources, and that if they need more help, they're more than welcome to reach out and say, we're happy to help where we can. And everybody's dealing with the same thing. So hopefully we're all working together, as independent as we may be, but we've got to work together to get to a point where everybody can safely play.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, good for you all though. You all get to get out, right? Right. You should have seen it here in Indianapolis. People thought, it was New World just came about. I was just excited going to Jimmy John's wearing a mask. I was really excited. But no, so Mark, I know you're going to be busy in the months ahead, right, to get ready for all this COVID, situation. And you said the US Youth Soccer is working on maybe a kind of a packet or some sort of programming for them. So maybe that's something for them to look forward to. Is that correct?
Yeah, we've got a grassroots focus group. And, of course, one of the hot topics right now is, can we come up with some ideas as to set up a structure where coaches can go out there on the recreation side in particular and set up an activity and have all those protocols and guidelines put in there as well. So that there is a base, a platform in which the volunteer coach to build from.
Yeah.
But that's one of the things we're looking at. But, again, I think, Ian, you mentioned it. It's a unique situation. And each one of our clubs are unique. Each state association is unique. We have our own challenges that we have to face. And I think we pretty much have to work with all our members and customize something for them as best we can.
Yeah, and Vince, if I may, I think we should be looking for positives who are amongst all of this challenge, right? And one of them is, if there's a small reset and we are less concerned about competition, yeah. tournament, and I appreciate there's economic, but if we think about the purest form, a group of kids meeting up in a social athletic setting, I think that's worth getting back to. If that comes with a few more controls, but maybe now those kids are training a little bit more, playing a little bit more, having a laugh a little bit more. Maybe there is some silver lining in here as well.
Yeah. That was one of the initial reasons why Little League Baseball was started, right? It wasn't about really, competing against other towns, and it's just about getting kids together socially to learn a sport and to get better. And then, like everything else, not just in baseball, but basketball and soccer. I mean, they just morphed into this animal that we're trying to get back in. And Julie mentioned a really good point. I mean, maybe clubs will agree a little bit more. Hey, we have to do what's best for the kids here, and so, yes, Julie, great remark there. So, well, thank you so much. Massachusetts Youth Soccer, by the way, a shout out to them, and Ian Mulliner, our TGIF special guest, every TGIF he's on, and he's working on developing some resource and some lesson plans. And I know, Mark, you're on that focus group too, so thank you very much for that. So, boss, I'll let you shut down since you have the administrator rights. So,
do you off the top of our head, Vince, who's on tomorrow?
We have no one tomorrow because we're off.
Wednesday, we get an off day.
We have a recovery day.
Look at you guys.
The goalkeepers and the advocacy council go tomorrow, so we get a day off.
Yes. Yep.
Andrew, as a loyal follower of Match Day, thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
And being on the front end of the camera. And Mark, it's always a pleasure. And I respect a lot how much you guys care about the little ones, which is kind of the passion of it, right? Is the grassroots, the youth license stuff. So hopefully you guys stay safe and all your players stay safe. And I hope Florida Youth Soccer keeps taking the lead in Florida for best practices. And to Julie, Ian, Amin, who's the first lady I said?
As I say, Ian McCallum, by the way,
Sarah.
Yep, Sarah, yep. So it's great.
Yeah. Thank you all so much. Be safe, and we'll see everybody on Thursday. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Be safe.